Alrighty, friends, we are back. It's your favorite podcast of the week. It's Location Weekly. This is episode number 696, and we are recording on November the 19th. Brianna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Not bad. It's a busy time of year trying to get everything done, before everybody takes off for holidays and all of that. So, yeah, lots going on.
I know it's hard to believe. It's been like kind of warm, so it's starting to cool down finally, and I feel like it's getting to be the holidays. And don't judge, but I did put up my Christmas decorations. I just was like ready to feel that holiday feeling. Felt like it was like time.
Is that a normal thing? Like, do people do that before American Thanksgiving?
Not many. I think it's
Okay.
like, some people might make fun of that, but I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of effort involved with decorating. And so
Yeah.
I like to enjoy it as long as possible. And I am not hosting Thanksgiving this year. So I don't
See,
know.
that's where I think like Canadian Thanksgiving is better because we're in October, so there's more time in between the Christmas and the Thanksgiving, so we can start decorating like now. Like we're
And
good.
nobody's making fun of you
And
if you do.
nobody's, yeah, exactly. So,
I like it.
anyway.
Okay.
All right. Well, we've got four stories to cover off this week, so I'll let you kick us off.
All right, let's start with a social media story. Snapchat is adding some new location features specifically to its family center offering. So, they're saying that this is kind of a way to, well, they're really showcasing it as a way for them to continue their commitment to like safety and privacy, but still offering obviously the paying community of brands and advertisers to engage with teens and families. So Snapchat currently has 350 million monthly active users that engage with the Snap Map, and now with this like privacy conscious kind of audience, they're trying to say with this new update, which they do every year, like, hey, now you can have increased transparency, more control for families, and giving insight to parents for their teens' location sharing preferences. So some of those things are kind of interesting to me as a parent. But you would be able to see, for example, like which friends your teens are sharing their location with on the Snap Map, which I think is really important. I think we all want our children to keep good company. Also, parents can select like key locations. So think about school or, maybe where they have sports after school or extracurricular activities. And then you can receive notification when your child arrives or departs. And then, on the flip side of this, like for marketers, you've got some unique opportunities for location-based advertising. So real-time management, you can do campaigns that are built around family-friendly messaging, still maintaining that trust and privacy, for that demographic there. So some examples of this, you could, with the ability to track specific locations, not necessarily specific users, brands can deliver some targeted offers and messages when users arrive in specific, areas, some location-based event invitations. So just kind of giving them opportunities for more timely advertising. And because this is all opt-in location sharing, they are really ensuring that users have control over their information, and they're hoping that this approach is going to build brand loyalty, obviously to Snap, but just making privacy a priority, and considering for both users and advertisers. I think this is like the way that we feel like it should be in this type of a balance, is making sure, one, I think like giving parents control of ensuring that their kids are safely using social media, I feel like is really important, and what, being able to kind of see like where your children are and like what they're doing and who they're doing it with, I think is just like super helpful. I'm curious how many parents are actually going to take advantage of this feature, but I'm still like on the train of like my kids never getting a phone. But I think that at some point I'm gonna have to like, come to reality and realize that, but hopefully that will be many years away. And at that point, I want to be able to know like who are you engaging with, where are you, when do you get there, when do you leave? Just like the basic things that we want to do to ensure our kids are safe and being taken care of. And then I also think, brands and advertisers, they want to connect with people, they want to do it in a timely way. And if this is making this more of like an opt-in feature where you're getting those alerts and those notifications, without necessarily sharing private information. I think this is a great balance between, who pays for the service and those who use the service. So I like this. Any thoughts?
Not a lot to add here. I think you've covered it so well. I think a couple things that jumped out at me. 350 million monthly active users is a big number. Um, and that they do this annual update and it's their 13th annual update. I'm kind of like, have they been around for 13 years already?
Yeah.
Like time flies, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm a parent as well. My kids are much older now, living on their own, or at least one is. And so, obviously I have less need for this, but I can totally see this, when my kids were younger, being able to, know where they are, who they're sharing location with, I think is an interesting component to this. I really like it. And then from the brand perspective, to be able to look at the specific locations and be able to offer, advertising, and messaging, whatever it is that they're trying to promote in a, geographic specific context, to a family oriented audience, I think makes a ton of sense. So I like it all around. Nothing more to say about it, but I think it's really strong. And especially in the current sort of climate of, TikTok, sort of being banned, at least here in Canada, it's being banned now by the government. And I guess the US is still discussing that and, going back and forth on that. But, it's good to see somebody's focusing on privacy and family safety.
Yep.
I love it. All right. On to our second story. So a bit of a retail story. And once again, we're talking about retail media networks. This time, Western Union, we haven't talked about these guys for a while, have announced that they're have launched a new media network across all of their stores and which there are many. As I was looking into this, they have operations in 200 countries, 130 currencies that they operate in. So, a big footprint that they cover off. I think rather than say, hey, here's another media network, what I will say that I like about this story is that they're thinking about their media network and the opportunity for brands to advertise in their stores, in their media network on a sort of broader, media play. So it's not just screens in stores and, programmatic advertising reaching that. They've connected that to, their digital out of home network, to CTV, OTT, and other digital displays that they have access to. It also ties in their mobile and their online, offerings. So they've kind of thought about this in a way to kind of bring all of their media together in one place and having the media network be just another component of that. So I like it from that point of view, that it's not a standalone mechanism that they're trying to monetize, but they're kind of tying it together with, all of their different media. Um, and they're really thinking about it in terms of first party deterministic audiences and insights, right? So, making these sort of buyer personas that they're piecing together from all their different media components come together into one that, an advertiser can be attracted, to and want to engage with. So, yeah, again, nothing mind blowing here or revolutionary from a technology perspective. Everybody's building media networks, but I like that they're trying to tie it to some of their other media assets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you are in the space of a media network, commerce media network, retail media network, travel media network, whatever it may be, I think the biggest opportunity is one, how do you scale your audiences, which is audience extension is exactly what they're doing. And two is how do you potentially replicate what you're doing or I would say like empower buyers that are coming to you to spend their media dollars to do that across like multiple ones. We've got, over 250 plus different media networks worldwide right now. And if I'm an advertiser, the thought of going to each of those individually, I think is a big pain point. I think it's a opportunity that needs to be solved. And so I think like making, your foray into the media network ecosystem is like step one. But I think thinking about this from a larger perspective is really where the opportunity is here. So interesting and definitely one to keep an eye on.
There you go.
Okay, going back to another app, and let's go to a dating app, Grinder. Excuse me. Okay, so I got my voice back. Grinder dating app is rolling out or releasing an AI wingman or an agent. So you think of agents or bots that we know these are now going beyond like the chat bot and kind of generative AI that we have all come to know and use through things like ChatGPT. So we're not just answering questions anymore, summarizing text, kind of creating content. Now you think about how can these bots or agents really go out into the digital world and do things on people like you and I's behalf? But specifically for this context, it is Grinder users. So what they're thinking about is like this could be maybe pertaining to dating, making reservations, buying an outfit, answering customer calls, right? Whipping up a marketing campaign, all of these different things. We've seen some of this kind of happening in more of, I would say, like the tech ecosystem. So you've got like Microsoft, Salesforce, Workday. All of these have announced AI agents for workplaces, but what Grinder's really thinking about is like, how do we bring this in and make this pertain to our user base? So what they're saying their vision is like by 2027, have this fully up and running, and this wingman's going to be available as an assistant for, they have about 14 million app users, and it'll help them keep track of conversations with some of their favorite users, maybe recommend long-term relationship candidates, suggest dating spots. And then even further down the line, more in the future, some of the functions would be like making a restaurant reservation. One thing they mentioned was even dating another AI agent. That's crazy. But an example of this is like the wingman could have a conversation with another wingman, right? And then after their humans had matched, so that by the time these two humans go on a real world date, they have had a chance to actually like get to know each other, right? They have some of more of a robust view of each other. So this could also, might spot like dating deal breakers early on. So it's kind of like saving the humans time and filtering out maybe bad candidates. So right now it's like a very small test group for this proof of concept. They're trying to expand this to roughly 1,000 users by the end of the year and then 10,000 users next year. And then one other feature that is like interesting is they want to tap into user data and language to make this more adaptable for the Grinder user base specifically, right? So they plan to use the agent to like be able to interact for other things like how do you discuss feelings, combat loneliness, maybe talk about like depression. So I think that's like another interesting use case here. Um, I find this equally fascinating and scary at the same time. I also find that in the generation of like the loneliest generation ever to live, we are continuing to push towards more interaction with computers and screens and less interaction with humans, and with each other. So I think that's always going to be detrimental to our health, no matter how great AI is. I don't think that there's ever a replacement for real human interaction. I do think that this is great to be able to have maybe a place or an outlet for feelings, saving time. Dating is a hassle for a lot of people these days. And it's interesting because you and I are old school, right? Like we didn't grow up in this time of like using technology to find companions necessarily, but I think that this is the way that people are meeting these days. And so I think it's smart from a business perspective that Grindr is recognizing the opportunities here. I do think it's a little scary. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so from an AI utilization perspective, I think it's brilliant. I think they've thought through a lot of great use cases here, and having these AI agents kind of do a lot of the legwork to simplify the process is a good thing. For me, I'm with you. I'm 100% in the, we're losing human to human contact. people are busy, but and obviously, I'm of a different generation, and I know lots of friends who are using these types of apps every day. But it's like, do we actually want to divorce ourselves from the process of, trying to find a date or a mate out there, where some bot is doing it all for us? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like, for me, it's like doing the work and doing the investigation, trying to figure it out. Is there a connection? All of that, like, is, that has to be, there has to be some emotional, human component to that. And I'm not saying that the AI can't sort of pick better initial candidates for me, or things like that. But I worry about, is this kind of just taking all of the humanness out of it, and at the end of the day, like, the AI bot's going to set it all up, book me a reservation. I just need to show up at the place and see what happens. Like, like, where's the days of, like, even the early days of dating apps, like, of, let me go and check this person out on Facebook, and this one and that one, and who do I know that might know them, and like all this kind of stuff, right? That we would do. Um, like, that's gone. Like, there's, like, I don't have
Yeah.
like a direct engagement, invested interest in doing any of the work myself. It's being done for me. So
Yeah, and like how does that set you up for long-term success in a relationship? Like if you don't do anything for the person out the gate,
yeah,
like plan the date or actually decide what you think about them in your own mind without somebody or some bot influencing you about your feelings, I think that's like super questionable, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think you're going to get out of these relationships what you put in. So unless you're trying to, end up with a bot for the rest of your life, then I think that you need to probably approach this from a human perspective.
Yeah, but from a grinder business point of view, it's brilliant, and I think it's
Brilliant. I know.
it's awesome for them, and I can see them, really, just getting more stickiness and more users, from these types of tech implementation. So it's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, good thing this is like a tech podcast and not a relationship podcast.
There you go. Okay, on to our final story now. So we're going to talk about Niantic. So you probably know them better as, the guys behind things like Pokemon Go and platforms like that. But they have announced, built on top of their spatial map, a virtual positioning system. They're calling it the Niantic Spatial Platform. And so really what this is kind of taking, their technology that they've pioneered and proven over the last few years, and making this, widely available and accessible for developers, to kind of build on top of that. So the new platform puts focus on their spatial map, a third generation 3D digital map, which is built for spatial computing. It's trying to set up for the future as well, to, knowing that, there's a whole bunch of outdoor, wearable AR glasses coming down the pipe, and other things that, can, pull in visual positioning cues. They say they have over 1 million locations available for production, and location-based immersive experiences already mapped in this, um, with centimeter level precision. So when we talk about visual positioning, really what we're talking about is, from a location point of view, not using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or GPS or any of these kind of things to determine, your physical position in the world, but using visual references to do that. So, here's a building, and we've captured imagery around that building, and we know that, there's a street lamp here, and there's a this there, and all these different sort of markers around, and we've stored those in a system visually. And so when you show up in a spot, and your camera looks around and it sees those images, it's able to recognize them and then say, hey, we know, where we are. And that's essentially what, VPS is doing today. And how they're reacting in that way. So I think this is awesome. It's built on, a platform called Unity, for those who are familiar with those types of development platforms. Um, and there's a foundational tool set called Lightship ARDK. So for anyone who's already built on Lightship, it's fully transportable into this new Niantic spatial platform. Yeah, like the applications are really limitless for what you can do with this. They've talked about real estate applications, they've talked about tourism applications, and all sorts of other things that can be done with this in terms of leveraging the spatial platform. So I think this is cool. I like that they've kind of made this available to developers. They announced this at Web Summit last week in Lisbon, and there was an experience called the Mudo Meter that was built with Wonderment by Design, and people could play around with that and see how developers could leverage the platform. So super cool and interesting.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add, but I think there's some really fun features and capabilities that they're opening up. So it's really up to the developers to get creative and see how they can tap into this. So this is one I think we'll definitely be following and seeing how do they do, like what are they gonna do? What are they gonna build off of this now? What's next?
There you go. Well, that's our show for this week. 4 stories. You've been listening and watching episode number 696 of Location Weekly. We thank you as always for your time. If you have story ideas, we'd love to hear about them. If you have feedback or you're one of the companies we talked about today, we'd love to hear from you too. Obviously, give us some likes and love on wherever you're consuming this, whichever podcast platform that is. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another show with a whole new set of stories. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate your time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.